everyone, and welcome to our first episode of WesterosCraft, Between the Blocks. This is Dutch Guard, and this series is going to be talking about what goes on behind the scenes on our server to get all of our projects underway, and to help me out with that today is a very special guest, and I will let her introduce herself.
Hi, I'm lemonbear. I am a moderator on WesterosCraft, and I've been around for quite some time now, so I know a lot of the ins and outs of the server. So my current project right now that we're going to be spending some time talking about and kind of go through the process of what, submitting an application for a project is like. So my current project is what I call the Central Westerlands Mega Project. And that really just encompasses several projects in the center of the Westerlands, hence the name, which include Sarsfield, Hornvale, the village of Oxcross, and the former lands of House Tarbeck, which were one of the major proponents of the Tarbeck Rain Rebellion.
Wow, sounds like a big project.
Yes, it is quite a large project. It's kind of what a mega project is. It's a little bit of a different thing from our normal solo projects, but it's not quite a server project either, because it usually has one major leader. And the goal really is to just get a consistent style across a larger region of Westeros.
So speaking of style, tell us about where we are now.
So right now we are in the central courtyard of Tarbeck Hall before it has been ruined. I really like to build ruins intact and then destroy them later, and so that's kind of what I've done here. But if we fly up into the air, you can see that we're not really in Westeros at all. No. We are on my test plot, where there's several iterations of this castle already, and that really is because of our project application process.
So your test plot is kind of your brainstorming space where you can mock things up and test ideas, and that's why everything's kind of looking a little disorganized. Is that right?
Exactly. If you look to, I believe, the north of us, you will even see something that does not really belong in Westeros at all. But that's because our test plots allow us to, just have a space to build whatever we want. A lot of people use it to test for future projects, and a lot of people use your test plots just to have fun. But yeah, so this is actually from my application for Tarbeck Hall. If we start with this little model right here, you can kind of see it's a much smaller version of the larger castle that we were standing in earlier.
Oh, right. So this is the little courtyard we were in. It's just smaller.
Yes, it's significantly smaller. It is a little 2x2 square right there.
Yeah.
And these other aspects are, other building blocks essentially for the castle. There's the main gatehouse, there's some walls, there's some towers, and really all of these different aspects are things that we expect builders to test before they apply for a project, so that we can get an idea of what their project will look like within the game.
Right, we want to make sure they have a good understanding of what the end product might look like.
Exactly.
Cool. So that's what we're surrounded by here, is all these different tests. I mean, can you tell me a little bit about what the style is that you're going for here in the Westerlands, what the inspiration for it is?
Yeah, of course. Since pretty much time immemorial on our server, we've really drawn from a very Italianate style for the Westerlands. I believe we were inspired by some concept art or some fan art for Casterly Rock, and really kind of let our imaginations go wild there. In more recent years, we've had a little bit of, just some discussions on the server about whether or not an Italianate style is fitting for the Westerlands, because within canon, the region is described as a temperate region, which, when you think of Italy, you don't really think of very temperate regions. You think of, the Mediterranean, the warm climate, the ocean, things like that, which we were starting to draw very heavily from for our southern reach. And so what I decided to do, especially with this Central Westerlands project, is to kind of say, yes, we can have an Italianate style, but let's think a little bit further north. Let's go, to the northern Italian regions. Let's look at the Apennine Mountains. Let's, because that is a temperate region. And so we can keep our architecture more or less intact. But, as long as we shift a little bit further north to, the Alps and perhaps to to northern Italy, then, we'll be within canon for the biome itself.
Yeah, so it's just about refining the style. We're not trying to shake up, anything too much here. We're just trying to refine it. Can you tell me a little bit about these houses that I'm looking at down here? Are they also for your project?
Yes, they are actually. And so along with testing for a castle, we require people to test for houses that might exist within their project as well, because it's not just going to be a castle, it's going to be a town, or it's going to be several hamlets, or it's going to be, just in general, a larger region than, just a castle. And so what I did here was primarily this is testing for palette. So that's why a lot of the houses look very similar. Just getting an idea of what type of palette could exist in the region.
By palette, you mean kind of like the different kinds of blocks?
Exactly, the different types of blocks and the different the different ways you can put those blocks into a house. Where, for example, I have a brick on bottom, plaster on top, or brick on top, stone on bottom, different types of layouts like that.
Right, really cool. So I think we're getting a little ahead of ourselves, actually. I mean, I want to know about why you decided to choose this really big Central Westerlands project. What inspired you? What made you want to do it?
Yeah, so for me, it always, whenever I start a new project, it always comes down to lore or what I can find that inspires me. And so, sometimes that might be the sigil that inspires me to, come up with a story behind a house, and, that will inform my architecture and things like that. With Tarbeck Hall, because there actually is a decent amount of canon with them, because they were such a major force, 40 years before the time of our server, I really was just kind of inspired by that lore that exists. The idea that when Ellen Rain, or Ellen Tarbeck née Rain, became, I guess, primarily in charge of Tarbeck Hall, she really used, the power that she had and the money that the Lannisters kept giving her, because she had been married to a Lannister who had died, to replenish and to essentially strengthen her new house. They bought up lands. They took lands from surrounding lesser powers, and they built roads, they built seps, they built holdfasts all across the land in their, the surrounding area. I believe it was stated that Lord Tarbeck had, I think, 25 or 50 maybe household knights before he married Ellen Tarbeck. But afterwards, they had about 500.
Wow.
So
that's a pretty big improvement.
Really, exactly. And, that's part of the reason why Tywin Lannister, when he came back from fighting in the Dance of Dragons, he really wanted to kind of reduce their power. And that's what had led to the Tarbeck Rain Revolt.
Oh, right. Okay, so that's why Tarbeck Hall is a ruin now.
Exactly. So part of the reason why it's a ruin is Tywin Lannister brought his forces straight to the walls of the castle. And, Ellen Tarbeck had rebuilt her walls. She had strengthened her towers. She thought she would be in for a very long siege, but to all accounts, the fighting lasted an hour. Okay. And Tywin Lannister destroyed the keep, crushing Ellen Tarbeck and her son, sent her daughters to be, what are they called? The sisters of the Silent Sisters.
Oh, yeah.
And they burnt the keep.
Right, so they ended the family line then and there.
Exactly. So that there was absolutely no way that Tarbecks could ever try to take power from the Lannisters ever again.
Yeah, and this is the fear, of the Lannisters that's instilled in lots of different houses and families across Westeros. Tywin Lannister definitely has a reputation for not being especially friendly. So this kind of stuff, lore and the style, I mean, this is all part of the application process, right? So
it is.
We mentioned it
so
before.
You have to, as part of the application process, you have to do a lot of research. And so usually that requires, at least the very minimum looking into, information about the house that you're applying for. Sometimes it'll also include, like for my project, researching real world and, trying to come up with, what exactly would this look like when translated into Minecraft, so that we can, have realistic looking areas for our castles and our, villages to exist in.
Yeah, I mean, you want to kind of create this real self-supporting almost society, because I think it's really easy to just put down a couple castles, but, you can't have castles without people and farmers and all kinds of professions and towns and villages and quarries and mines and all this kind of stuff. It's not just about building, a really great castle. I mean, of course we do that as well, but you've got to kind of create this immersive scenario. And so I think what's great about your project is it's not necessarily about building one location or one area, but about creating an area that's connected and feels like it could be sort of a self-sustaining area of people living and working.
Yeah, that is always my goal, trying to, because we try to put various aspects of industry, within our projects. We want to have, carpenters, we want to have masons. The whole idea is that those, professionals and those artisans would be supporting a community, and, trying to have kind of, as you said, like an ecosystem that is very self-sustaining, where one person will necessarily, they're the bricklayer, so they're going to be building the walls around the, around the farms, and then the other one's going to be doing all the farming and, building the baskets that people are going to be using to collect their food in, so it is a very self-sustaining, very, community-focused, I guess, project.
Yeah, very cool. And so we do have different kinds of projects on the server. I mean, we have server-wide builds that everyone can get involved in. I mean, what kind of build is this classed as?
So this is a bit of a new type of project. It is between a normal solo project and a server project. Because it encompasses such a large region, that's kind of why it doesn't necessarily fit into the normal solo project field, but at the same time, because it is led by one person, because it has a consistent style, throughout the entire project, there's not necessarily too much deviation. It also does kind of fit within that solo project. It is definitely more of a hybrid between the two that I think we're still trying to figure out exactly, what, if we could have more projects like this in other regions.
Yeah, so we're kind of adapting the format, the formula for doing all this stuff. When did you start this project, by the way?
So I started this project, I believe, the end of summer last year, so 2019. If you think that, coming up on a year is a long project, for me it is not. My previous project took about 4 years to complete.
So we're just in the beginning phases, really.
Exactly. But it's actually been coming along very well. Having World Edit, definitely helps out with creating terrain in a quick manner, as opposed to my previous project. A lot of the time I'd be changing things completely by hand. And that's not really a fun process.
No. Speaking of, can we go and check out some of your builds?
Yeah, of course. So let's start with Ox Cross.
Okay, I'll follow you there. Right, so tell me a little bit about where we are in the project timeline for this, because it looks like there's still some stuff going on, things that haven't been built yet.
Yes, so this is, it's actually coming along pretty quickly. It has over the last, I guess, week or so, last few weeks. But this is still in the building phase. The surrounding areas where you can see that there's like white mountains and things like that, that's definitely still in the terraforming phase.
Right, yeah, I can see some of that now.
Trying to make the mountains look better than they were initially. It's the difference between, I guess, what we call vanilla mountains, which were, what was created with World Painter when we made this map, and, more realistic mountains. I'm definitely a little bit newer with this myself, so my mountains are not perfect, but it's definitely, I've been reassured that no matter what I do, it's going to be an improvement from the previous mountains. So
yeah, I mean, they look pretty good. I mean, obviously they're not the right color yet, but
exactly, yeah,
the shape of them looks
the
really
white ones
impressive.
are still very work in progress.
Yeah, very cool.
But yeah, so with Ox Cross, the village, my goal was to make it not feel as, I guess, dense as some of my other areas. So if we visit Sarsfield and the town by Tarbeck Hall, those are a little bit more dense and more villagey, more towny. The goal for this was to make it just feel very rural, very based around several farm complexes. Where they're more interested in working on, I think I have a abattoir, so I have a slaughterhouse for cattle. I have, barns for cattle. I have, rope makers, farmers, primarily farmers. And yeah, so if you look at the area marked off by pink glass, that is going to be a septry, where members of the Faith of the Seven will be constructing statues and idols for the Seven.
Oh right, I see it. Is it this spot here? Am I looking in the right place? Oh no, this is this is another little separate hamlet.
So
Septry.
Where am I looking? There are several hamlets that are marked off.
Okay, I can
with
see it
just
now.
Glass. Yes, exactly. So pink glass. It'll be across the way from a logging camp and a lumber mill.
Okay, cool. And you've got like a little river through here. Did you make that, or? I mean,
yes,
it looks like it's still being made.
So the very base of it was already in the map up to about here. And before that, it was completely done, a good chunk of it completely by hand, for the shape of it, because the goal is to make something look organic, and more realistic. And, when you have something that's painted in, with World Painter, for example, it's very difficult to get something very narrow and very flowing and very, organic feeling. So we've actually been doing a lot of work on our server lately to update our rivers into some of them are amazingly beautiful and amazingly intricate with, I believe they're called like oxbow lakes and, different little shoot offs and things like that. And I wanted to go a little bit more simple with mine, just largely because it's not necessarily on as flat of a plane as some of those. I believe it would more likely just stick to the contours of the it's been given.
Yeah, you can definitely see the way it sort of snakes through the landscape, and it's falling at the appropriate levels. And I know there's no water in it now, but you've just got these placeholder
yes,
blocks.
Right now, yeah. My go-to placeholder block is always glass.
Yeah, and that's just to help you outline, and so that that something's not finished yet, and you can keep going back to tweak it. And then once you're happy with it, you can just in one fell swoop change it all to the correct materials and blocks.
Exactly.
Is that right? Yeah.
Exactly. Mm-hmm.
So tell me a little bit about sort of what I'm seeing here. There's some more outlines here, but there's also these blocks over each of the buildings. Can you kind of explain what that's about?
Yeah, so one of the major things that we ask people to do when they build a house is to tag their project, just so that we have an idea of who was in charge of it, and make sure that they know what they were doing and why. For example, this one says that it's a worker's house, and so if they had removed that it was a worker's house and then for whatever reason forgot to include that that idea within their project, we wouldn't necessarily remember ourselves, that this was supposed to be a worker's house.
Right.
And they messed up in some aspect. Above it, you can kind of see that there's like a melon. So this one's actually for myself. Make this brown daub and wattle, where it was originally a different, I believe it was brick daub and wattle, which, because the goal for each of these complexes is to make them look like a cohesive
set of buildings.
Farm complex, exactly, set of buildings. I thought that having so many different palettes would be a little bit
confusing.
Confusing, exactly. Yeah. It wouldn't make it look like it went together.
Yeah, so I mean that's kind of the advantage of having someone who can see over a whole project, kind of like a director would on a film set, to make sure that all the parts are working together and that you're getting the best out of everyone. So I guess this system of tagging plots and feedback and this conversation is all working towards getting it to be where you'd like it to be. And it seems like here that's worked quite well. I mean, this is quite a nice little worker's house, and you've got all kinds of different professions. So here's like kind of a slightly larger building.
Yeah, so this is the main house.
Okay.
For this complex, which primarily butchers cattle.
Okay.
So yeah, over
fun.
Here, yeah. Well, it's a necessary thing.
Yeah. Yeah. So here you can see someone's name that they've built this.
Exactly.
Oh, he's actually done both of these, and everyone kind of has their own style of tag. I've noticed some people use glass blocks.
Yeah, so after a while, in my opinion, tags get pretty identifiable where, even from far away, you can identify, oh, this was that person who worked on this. Just because, and that's kind of the goal of a tag, actually, just so that we have an idea of who was in charge of a particular thing. So we know, oh, if we have to talk to them about changing the style a little bit and we don't want to leave a melon or, something like that, we can just go to them and talk to them in a private message or in person.
Cool. Yeah. So this is, I understand, one of the less finished areas of your project. Do you think we can check out somewhere that's a little more finished?
Yeah. So if we just follow the river north or follow the river road.
Okay, I'm following you.
Okay. So
you can see these sort of glass pink blocks and these white outlines. Are those fields?
Yes, those are going to be fields.
Okay, very cool.
And so
we've got a little more unfinished terrain on our left.
Yeah, so this green area is going to be forest.
Okay, cool.
Largely foresty. So the reason why the ground is a different color is so I can more easily paint it to be the forest floor texture or mix that I want it to be.
Right, and that's kind of a mixture of different blocks, and that's all available in our texture pack.
Exactly. And so I have actually like a long document, with all of the percentages of, exactly how much I want of like dirt, how much I want of, gravel, how much I want of, various pebble blocks, things like that I take into consideration and really test quite a bit before I will actually put it into the thing.
Yeah, always testing, lots and lots of
stuff. Where we are right now is Sarsfield.
Yeah, so this is kind of a bigger town, I guess?
Exactly. So this is still a work in progress. You can see that there's still some plots that need to be finished. But this is pretty much coming up on its, getting ready to start detailing the surrounding area, not just focused on houses anymore. So that's definitely where this one is. For each of my, towns or villages, I really tried to get a different feel. You might, see, so the Sarsfields have pretty much always been loyal followers of the Lannisters, because they were an Andal house. And so one of the history, the history of the Andals in the Westerlands is that many of their children were taken hostage by the Lannisters. And therefore, essentially, they became very loyal followers of the Lannisters, when they grew up and took over their own houses. So with this, I'm trying to kind of give a happier, open feeling. There's going to be a festival in the center, with potentially like an archery competition, because if you know the Sarsfield sigil, it's an arrow.
Oh, right. Okay.
And
cool.
So it's going to be, my goal with this is that it's like a happier feeling, but at the same time, there's also a garrison for Lannister, guards and things like that.
Right. And that's this thing we're flying over.
Exactly. And so if we go even further to the town at Tarbeck Hall, the mood is a little bit different, or at least I hope that its red is a little bit different.
Okay.
especially once the castle is destroyed, where it's a bit more of an oppressive feeling. It's a little bit tighter. There's not really as many open spaces. This is still a little bit of a work in progress as well, but it is a little bit closer to being done
Yeah,
with just
I can
some
see.
detailing.
Oh wow, there's a big gallows in the middle of town, and that's pretty ominous.
Exactly. There's a big gallows. There's a whipping post nearby, but at the same time, people are learning to deal with it. They've just set up a market around it, and if the
Yeah.
the Lannister tools need to be used, then they will be used.
Right. So
but
yeah,
yeah,
this is 40 years later after the
exactly.
revolt.
So 40 years
Yeah.
have passed, and so imagine that the castle will be destroyed on top of the hill.
Right, you haven't destroyed it yet. It's still
No,
intact.
exactly. I'm gonna try to keep it intact for as long as I can.
Okay, and then systematically destroy it.
Exactly. I have some tests in place where it's going to, largely be pretty simple, I think, to destroy it. I've partially built it to be destroyable. So there's various aspects that currently exist, like the roofs on top of the towers, that I'm just going to completely remove. There's wooden parts that I'm also going to completely remove because those would have been burned. Things like that.
Yeah, I can see this whole place going up in flames pretty quickly. Cool. So, have we got anywhere else we can take a look at?
Yeah, so if we go further west in this valley, we'll be heading to the most complete part. It's still a little bit of work in progress because I have to finish up, the trees on the sides of the valley and the forests around it, but it is the most complete.
Yeah.
And
Nice.
thank you. And this actually is probably one of the parts that I guess makes it feel the most like a mega project, because pretty much every single thing here, except for the fields, were done by someone else.
Oh, right.
This little hamlet was done by a different person. This sceptry was done by a different group of people, as well as the Lane Night Holdfast on the southern side of the valley, and the farm. So my primary job with this valley was to delegate these roles to different people and these different sub projects to
You're
different
like a
people.
coordinator.
Exactly, and I mean, I think that really worked out for this region. I think it's a very pretty area. So
Yeah, I love the little lakes in the middle, and you can see lily pads and reeds, and it looks really nice. And with all the sort of, I mean, the farms really bring it together. They add a lot of color and life and vibrancy to it, and it just feels like, yeah, I mean, if I just sort of walk around, it feels like you're walking around sort of valley surrounded by farmers, and see the castle out in the distance and the forest surrounding. So it's clearly paid off, having this system of trying to get to look coherent and working together. Yeah, this is really cool.
Thank you.
Okay, so where are you going from here? You're just gonna try and finish up the places that we looked at earlier, and
Yeah, so pretty much we went through the main valley of where the river road is, heading south to south. And once I'm finished with that valley, my primary goal is I'm going to move on to Hornvale, which is not even ready to be shown. It's for anything. Which I'm doing largely an update of what is already there. It was a completed project mostly, but the style is not up to date, and there were a few canon things that were incorrect that we need to fix.
Okay.
And so that's my next goal, along with just finishing up the mountains and the surrounding area, and maybe adding some goat paths, maybe adding some signs that people were bringing their animals to graze in the upper valleys of the hills and things like that. So pretty much just continuing to work on immersion, continuing to create plots essentially for more people to build. That's my next goal.
Okay, wow. I mean, that's a lot. We've covered a lot. I have to thank you so much for spending some time with me, and I can ask you some questions and for showing us around your build.
Yeah, of course. I really enjoyed showing you around, and I hope people come on the server and enjoy looking at our projects, those that are completed and those that are in progress.
Okay, guys, great. You heard it here. Come and check out the Central Westerlands. Hopefully by the time you get on, it'll be further along and more complete, and you can have a little wander around. So thank you all very much for watching this first episode of Between the Blocks. As always, this is DutchGuard, and we'll see you next time.